I'm here with experienced paranormal researcher and intuitive Tawney Lewis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, all the way from Los Angeles. But no, I'm great. How are you today?
I'm excellent. I feel like, paranormal research is just such a unique field. Like, I don't think like, there's a career path. Like, you have career days at school. That wasn't like an option. How did you get into that particular career?
Oh my God. Okay, so fun fact is I'm actually terrified of anything paranormal. So I'm scared of ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, all that stuff. But when I was younger, I actually saw spirit when I was like 11 years old. I saw like a ghost in my room and it scared me. And I didn't want anything to do with it for like 20 plus years. But it was like my curiosity got the best of me. And so I started to learn about it. And so I always tell people that they fear what they don't know. And so I was like, well, let me learn everything about it so that I do know what this is. And so, yeah, I just made sure I understood it. I understood spirituality because I'm also an intuitive, and in addition to being a paranormal investigator. And so, yeah, I've been doing actual investigating for, oh God, about 14 years now. And it's totally genuine, where it's just I find it very really intriguing and very interesting to just hear about things that we just don't really have the full answers to.
When you saw the spirit at 11 years old, how did you know like it was a spirit? Because like, that's like your young age. And then obviously like, if you tell like certain people, they're not going to understand.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, the main reason it stood out is because I grew up in the Leimert Park area of Los Angeles, which is predominantly African American. And so when I woke up, I saw a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and she was kind of like a shimmery color. And to just make sure I wasn't losing my mind, I looked again, like I pulled the covers up, looked again, she was still there. And
Wow.
then I did it one more time, like, okay, Tani, you're gonna let's make sure. And she was still there, but she started to fade away. And so it stood out because one, how she looked, it was like a translucent goldish shimmer. That's the best way to describe it. And then also the fact that yes, this was a blonde hair girl who her dress looked again, it was a long time ago. Definitely wasn't present day. It looked decades old. I'm gonna take a guess and say maybe like the early 1900s, the way she was dressed. Um, and yeah, and it just stood out. And so that's how, it was like, okay, that's definitely not normal. That's definitely not something that would happen in Leimert Park. And also, I remember being scared to tell anybody. I told my sister like 2 months later, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" I was like, "I was scared. I don't know." But yeah, that was my first encounter.
Definitely. And you said like, that you tried to like kind of put that to the back of your mind. And when did you decide like, that you wanted to explore this a little bit more and like meet people who have like, an interest in the paranormal?
Yeah, it was weird. It was like connecting the dots. So like a few years later, I saw something else, but it was in the bathroom and it was like an outline of a man, but I ran out. So it was like something that was really quick and I was like, never again. And then also when I was younger, I could see auras. And so for those that don't know, auras are basically it's energy that surrounds a person and our object and it's different colors. And so I was able to see that as well. So a lot, not just paranormal, the spirituality was tied into just like my growing up. Prayed about it, went away. And funny about this is that when I was in my early 20s, I became like a store manager and I would interview people and I would shake their hand. And every time I shook their hand, it was like I was getting a download of information about them, like traits, personality traits. This person is going to be late. This person has an attitude. This person's good with whatever. And that was probably the first time where I said, think there's something to this. Like, I don't know why I'm getting information, but also reading about like UFOs and cryptid monsters and ghosts and just seeing books on it and just wanting to learn more. So it's weird. It's almost like I was kind of guided back on that path to where it was, like I said, it's a mixture of both, where it's like the spirituality, but then also the paranormal aspect. And got back on that path and it brought me to where I am today. It's so interesting because yeah, I definitely tried to avoid it when I was younger.
Definitely. And you say like, prayed about it. And I feel like just in Christianity, like I'm Christian, so like I can't speak for like any religious group, but like they talk about like, like staying away from divination, psychics, like, tarot cards, all that is like a contradiction in Christianity. Even though like, the idea of like, that will come from the fallen angels, like, they're the ones who basically taught these practices. which would assume like, that they were doing these practices in heaven. So like, there's a lot of like, I don't claim to be an expert or understand, but like, how does that fall into like, your faith and, what you believe?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that. Thank you. I have to think about that. I'm like, huh. Um, I believe, I don't know if this makes sense. I just feel like a person should just do what makes them happy. So like for example, everything you said makes sense. Another person could tell me about their culture, their spirit, their beliefs. And I'm like, you know what? Doesn't make you happy. And this is kind of like what my mom said when I first told her, I was like, hey, I like paranormal stuff. I like investigating. And also I think I might be a little psychic. And that's not her thing. She was born like raised in the Baptist church. She's from Georgia, not a thing. And she said, well, do you like it? I was like, I do like it. In the discussion.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. However, I'm always respectful of her and she's respectful of me. For example, I don't really talk about it that much with her, a little bit here and there. But for the most part, it's not a conversation that we have. And so I respect her with that. And then she respects that this is something that I like to do. And so that's kind of the best answer I can give, but it's an excellent question because no one's ever asked me that.
That's really cool. And you eventually like you went to school like to get certified. Like what is that process like? How do they like get how do you get training like for the paranormal?
Yeah, that's great. So two things. So when it comes to actual paranormal investigating with utilizing tools and going into haunted properties, that's something that I just fell into. So there was a team here in Los Angeles. I would always go on their ghost tours and their ghost walks. And finally, the founder, he said, "You go to so many of my tours, join my team." And I was like, so I was invited to join his team, which was great because then I learned how to do paranormal investigating. I learned about all the tools. So that's the first part of it. When it came to the psychic development, that kind of just happened where I was investigating in New Orleans in, oh God, that was well, almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
And we went to this place where they said, oh, the room is haunted by an old nun. And I was like, I feel like there's a lady in here and she's like 25 and she has brown hair. And I was getting information. And then one of the investigators confirmed, like, oh, we heard on the spirit box there's a lady here that was 25. And I was just like, huh. And that was the first time where I thought, you know what? There's probably something there as well, like a gift but intuitive. And so it's when it came to that part, I decided, you know what? I think this will probably help me in my paranormal career. And so, yes, I started to take as many development circles, development classes whenever I could, whenever evenings, weekends, online, in person. And then, yeah, I studied with Lisa Williams. Lisa Williams, she used to have a television show years ago. She's honestly one of the greatest psychic mediums in the world. She is amazing, amazing teacher. I just can't say enough good things about her. And she accepted me into her master teacher program, which there are only about 50 or so in the world. And I did that program for a year. And then the graduating portion, I had to go out to New York and I was with her for 1 month. And like 1 month, every single day, 8 hours a day, and was certified. And so I'm proud of that because there's so many people out there that are like, I'm going to teach you how to be a medium or a psychic medium, where it's not that easy. There's a lot of ethical things that are involved in how you communicate with your clients, the things that you say and the things that you do in a safe way of approaching this. And I'm proud to say that I've been able to be trained by one of the best. And so definitely that's kind of like how that path went with the psychic development.
Yeah. And I definitely believe like, there are people who have psychic ability. One thing like I've noticed in the space, it seems that there's people who take advantage of, their gifts or like, other people's needs. Like, how do
Mhm.
you like, keep that balance and like, practice being ethical? Because like it's easy for people to take advantage of like, people wanting to connect with like, the deceased loved ones or whatever it is, some information that they might want to know.
Oh God, it's the best way to say it. How can I? Well, what's interesting with me is because I'm so fascinated with more the paranormal aspect, I actually don't do psychic medium readings full time Monday through Friday. There's a lot of gifted people out there that do that, to each their own. However, I decided to use that just for the paranormal. And I feel like that also confirms my commitment to that field because, like you said, there are so many out there that are like, oh my God, I'm psychic. Oh, let's see what I can tell people. Let me just make up stuff. And I'm like, oh God, no. But no, I would say it's oh God, it's so important to be ethical. And I have to give you an example. Years ago, like 15 years ago, I saw a psychic and she said, oh, your sister's she's about to die. Who says that to some, and I held on to that 15 years ago, and I still remember her saying that. Sister's still alive, by the way. And
That's
so that's kind of the things that we, well, myself train developing mediums. It's like, okay, how would you want a psychic to talk to you? Because guess what? That one little thing that they say you're going to hold on to. And so just making sure that they're respectful to the client, that they're I want to say positive, but I pause on that because, there might be some information that they need to know, but also asking the client, what do you want to know? Because, a client might say, I only want to hear about my relationship. Do not talk about my family. Perfect. And so that would probably be the advice of those that want to see a psychic. It's like, does that psychic know exactly what you want to talk about? Are they respecting your boundaries? Are they asking you kind of the areas that you want to focus on? Because if they don't, they just kind of jump in without even getting your permission. That's a red flag.
Yeah, one of the reasons like I wanted to interview you too, because being a person of color in this space, I feel like there's not a lot of them. Like I see, like most of the people like in the space seem to be white. Why is that? And like how can that change, or do you feel like it needs to change?
Oh man. Yeah, I know that I stand out, and I always tell people that I do this work because it's fully genuine, where like I've done a lot of television programs and I'm like, hey everyone, I'm not looking for fame. I'm not looking for fame. However, I think it's because, like you said, people are like, oh, she's different. Oh, hello, and I really want to talk to her. And I appreciate that because then I'm able to show people that not everyone in the paranormal field has blonde hair, blue eyes. Not everyone in the paranormal field are big guys from the Midwest. There's a lot of diversity. There's more that I can think of right now, where I know of Asian investigators, Latino investigators. I know of another Black investigator on the East Coast. Like there's a lot. And so I think it's good. I hope that I'm a positive representative of that because again, I'm not out there looking for demons. I'm out there just trying to explore and see what else is out there. But it's hard. Especially because when it comes to regular investigating, I think, I do it like anybody else, but when it comes to the media aspect, it is hard, like getting myself more forward, if that makes sense. So, for example, I was feeling like there needs to be more shows about minority stories. Like they're not all ghosts are white, There's like the Ghost Brothers. Their show was great, and they were able to highlight like shows on I'm sorry, episodes on like plantations and stuff. And I'm like, there should be more of that. And I feel like a lot of producers are kind of like sweeping it under the rug, and I'm not exactly sure why. And so, whether it's myself or another person of color, I feel like they're going to continue to have challenges in the media aspect of paranormal, which is unfortunate because I think we need to be seen more.
Yeah, I love like what you're doing on TikTok, and it's like I feel like it's a nice mix of history because I love history, and like you have stories on there like visiting people's grave sites and like Hollywood Forever Cemetery, like Hattie McDaniel, and like you're talking about like these people like what they did in life, and like I think that's really cool. And you talked about like not looking for demons, but have you ever come across any malevolent spirits?
Let me think about this. Yes. The reason I'm pausing is I'm trying to think of like different times in my life. I'll say this, I rarely ever get sick during investigations, but there's a few where I started to feel like nauseous. And normally for me, it's a trigger like, okay, there's something a little darker in this space, or maybe a vortex. And so what comes to mind is Montana State Prison. I bring that up a lot in interviews. I went there years ago with a team. Massive place. It was huge. We need like 2 to 3 days to investigate that place. But yeah, that near the jail cells, my stomach started to hurt. I was like, yeah, this is a weird place. However, the whole time we were there, we didn't get a lot of evidence as a team, but and I'll send it to you later, but I remember we were leaving and I just felt the urge to take a photo down the hall of the jail cells. And just a random just snap on my iPhone, left, got on the plane, looked at the pictures. I was like, what is that? And there's a pair of glowing eyes staring at me.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's some of the best evidence I've ever caught. And I was like, I don't know what that was, but I'm glad I didn't go down there. But yeah, that's one. There's a place up in Lake Arrowhead, California, Brackenfern Manor, where the Tudor house across the street, there was rumored mafia activity where men were killed and left down there. In that area, a friend of mine got sideswiped by something. Like he was filming and it's something that he couldn't see, knocked him over and caused a bruise. But I always tell people that want to go into this work to always have an intention. What is your intention of doing this? My intention is to I'm curious, I'm nosy, I want to know who used to live here, what their stories were, what their names were. Whereas there are people, there are investigators. Their intention is I want to be pushed. I want to see what's out there. I want to see something dark. And that's not my intention. And so I could say that based off of that, whereas I've been doing this for 14 years, I've never had something like hit me or push me or nothing like that because I go into it with a certain mindset.
Definitely. Halloween's coming up, and do you feel like that's a good thing for your field, like for like to bring awareness to, like I think like 45% of Americans believe in ghosts. That's almost half.
Mhm. Yeah. Just like, what do you mean, like the season of Halloween and just kind of what people
Right. Like
think?
do you feel like it does more good, or like it's like more of like it brings like more of a negative connotation, like for
Oh. Oh, I think it brings more good. I mean, there's definitely people out there that are like, Halloween is dark. I'm like, no, no, no. But my experience is that it's a good thing. I think it's an amazing season for those that are open-minded. Just because they're like, for example, people always say the veil is thinner around Halloween. The veil is thinner. Things, haunted locations are more active. In my experience, I think they're active all the time. I've never felt like things were crazier around October 31st, but no, I think it's a good thing. I think those that might be intrigued by Halloween or not even that, just like the paranormal, I think that they can have fun during this month. Those that are actually like me that are like, for example, oh my God, Salem is packed right now.
right.
Salem, Massachusetts. Yeah, everyone's like paranormal. They all flew there, and it's like, luckily, I went there for the first time in August, and so it was decent, and I was able to walk around and. But no, I think it's for the
The people
positive.
in Salem would disagree with you. They would say, like, we're tired of you coming
Yeah,
here, you
they're
know,
over it.
because of the parking and it seems like it's a great place, like, to visit. But like I think like a lot of people who live there have like, this idea, like, they're tired of like, all the traffic, and it
You are
makes
right.
it difficult for residents.
You are right. And the parking is horrendous. When I went, I didn't have a rental car. I was like, yeah, no. So I'm not sure where all those people are parking, but it's a cool place. I would recommend it, especially during summer for anyone that wants to go. Hmm.
Most definitely. You are on a lot of different television shows. I saw like, you're on this new CTV sci-fi series titled Paranormal Revenge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So Paranormal Revenge, that came out, oh God, that's crazy. Exactly a year ago. So it airs on CTV Sci-Fi and Crave Network in Canada. That show's cool. It was a lot of darker stories where people had hauntings, but they felt like they were revenge based, and so a little bit more aggressive. Because I remember when I first was asked to be on the show, I was reading the stories and I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, what is happening? Because they're like really, really dark. I was like, is this for me? But no, it was cool because as someone that's been doing the paranormal for so long, I was able to just give insight as to what I felt this could be or what they may have wanted, or ways to rectify the situation. And so yeah, that show, I believe it's just so far just one season. But no, that was awesome. And the other investigators were Richard Estep and my friend Aaron Goodpipe.
Definitely. I was looking at your Twitter, I think, and you were talking about how like, there's a lot of people, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, who, are just in the space for attention. How do you like, balance that? Because like obviously being on television, some people just are doing it obviously for fame, and fame is clearly addictive. How do you like, stay grounded and, having been on a bunch of different television shows and
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because yeah, I'm really passionate about that because there are people, any race, they're just like, I want to be famous, I want attention. And that's fine. You can do that, but if you want to go into this field in the paranormal and you want to be famous, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to understand all the elements. You have to understand what ghosts are and residual energy and poltergeist. You have to know this because if you don't, you're going to go into you could possibly be putting yourself in a dangerous situation, especially as an actual investigator. Or like with myself, most of the shows I've done, I was actually an expert talking about the situation. Whereas someone that just wants to be famous, they wouldn't have any success in that type of atmosphere because they're like trying to talk about something that they don't know about. And so I would say please know what you're talking about. Please take classes. Please study. Please do investigations. Please learn from other investigators. Sorry, learn from other investigators before you really step foot into this. And just don't make it about the fame. I always say hashtag humbled, hashtag humble, because I love this stuff. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I want to talk about it. I'm not above anybody else. I literally just want to investigate. That's it. Like I went to a convention about, oh my God, it was like a month and a half ago. And I was just like, I'm here. Where are we investigating? Like I can't wait to investigate these two places. That's literally my focus is hunting ghosts and learning about the history and sharing that with other people.
That's really cool. Like, I love your vibe. Like, you have a great attitude about it. I think like, that there's like, such a misconception about like, your career. What would you like, explain to people like, about ghosts who have like, skepticism?
Just to make sure I understand answer it correctly, like people that have
Yeah,
skepticism towards the paranormal.
correct.
Um, One of my good friends is a massive skeptic, which is hilarious because he's always with me and he's like, yeah, that's crap. And I'm like, no, it's but he's open-minded. And so I would say people, they all have their own opinion and we're not there to change it. However, I just ask that they kind of like him, like at least are you open to the possibility? No, but you're right. I can't explain that. And I'm like, perfect. And so you can't explain it, but it's like I'm not there to try to change his mind. I just want him to be open to it. And so I would say that for any skeptic. Um, it's called the unexplained. And this is why we do it. And even if you don't believe what I'm in, you don't believe in what I'm doing, let's just be respectful and respect each other's opinions. But luckily, I haven't come in contact with too many skeptics except him really. So that's kind of like my experience with it.
Definitely. I watch a lot of horror movies, so like I don't have like a whole lot of knowledge about like, paranormal, but in some of the films you see like, that it is a little bit dangerous when you start messing like, with the paranormal, and you kind of alluded to that earlier. How do you keep safe? Like, what would be your advice to people who want to start off in the field, like, who have an interest in paranormal?
Oh yeah. First step is definitely like me. I started off doing a lot of paranormal tours, just so I can just make sure the vibe was my vibe and that, I was able to handle it. And then start doing investigations and they're absolutely possible. Like I went to Gettysburg a few months ago and they have a tour where it's an actual investigation. Anybody could do it, and so you're like, if you're not an investigator, you're like, I'm gonna sign up for this, see if I like it. Do it. Me, I went in like humble. Like I didn't even mention to her that I was an investigator. I was just like, cool, where are the tools? Let's do this. Like again, I just want to investigate. Then halfway in, she says, oh, are you an investigator? I said, yeah, I'm from LA. And she's like, oh, I wish you had said something. I'm just like, I'm not here to show you out. I'm just here to, like, do a paranormal investigation. And so I would say be humble, learn everything you can about the paranormal, about investigating, working with other people, because you are more than likely going to be on a team with others, and just making sure you're collaborative and hearing other people and just being able to be a team player. There we go. That's what I would say. Um, and then don't make it so much about the fame aspect. That's a big one. It's not, if it happens, great, but this should not be why you're doing anything when it comes to the paranormal. I feel like I'm missing something. What was the question again? I want to make sure I answered it.
Yeah, I think you answered it pretty well. Like,
Okay.
what would be the advice, like, for people who are interested in the paranormal.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what's next for you in your career? Like, is there any like, places like, that you want to explore that you haven't?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I want to do castles really badly. I have not done a castle yet. So that means I have to eventually go to Ireland or the UK or something. But that's like a big one for me. But yeah, and then there's a recent project if people want to watch, it comes on Tubi. It's called Famously Haunted Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's basically about all the different paranormal cases around Los Angeles County and Hollywood. And I'm one of the expert contributors. I'm just sharing my opinion about some of the big things. Yeah, that's happened over the last 100 years out here. So yeah, And then I have my day job, but which is great because I work remotely, and so I'm able to do investigating, or I'm able to do uh contribute to a TV show about my paranormal opinion. So yeah.
That's really cool. You know, being from LA, you know, what are some of the places you would recommend for people to check out?
Ooh.
You know, that
Oh man, what's the top five? Okay, so the number one that comes to mind is Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It's just a cemetery. However, you get some of the biggest stars that are buried there. It's a very serene type of cemetery, which is odd. They have yoga there. They have movie nights. Like it's a very chill place. However, I have done an investigation there in one of the mausoleums with an investigator from the East Coast. He was down here. He met with me, and we got some really good evidence there. Also, as an intuitive, I was able to like pick up information about some celebrities that my friend was able to confirm. Like if it was a celebrity I didn't know, but I was like, great example. I saw the grave of someone named Tyrone Powers. I was like, I don't know who that is, but I was like, I don't know why, but I see the army. The army is beating me in the head. And he looked them up. He's like, oh yeah, he was in the army. So it's just a very spiritual place. And so I would tell those like, yeah, just go. They're open every day from I think like 8 to 5. And then the second place I would suggest, oh my goodness, the David Omen House, which is actually mentioned on Famously Haunted Hollywood. The David Omen House, he's an expert on there talking about his house as well. And it's down the street from where the Manson murders took place. And it's
wow.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely one of the most haunted places in the United States. So yeah, if you Google David Omen House, you'll learn everything you need to know. And I've investigated it twice.
Wow, that's really cool.
Mhm.
When you talk about spirits, are there any spirits that you keep in contact with for, I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but
Um, No, but I hesitated only because years ago my friend and I used to go to Hollywood Forever during the pandemic, and I was getting intuitive hits around the Mickey Rooney grave, which is random. And so I would be like, I don't know why I'm connected to, I can't remember, it was years ago. I think I said Santa Barbara at one point, and my friend's like, oh, he was married to one of his wives in Santa Barbara or whatever. And so, but whenever we would go, we'd be like, hey, Mickey. And there's like, again, I would like spend a few minutes to see if I get intuitive hits there. But otherwise, no, no. Whenever I do like investigations, it's actually a good tip for investigators if you are communicating, whether it's with ghost hunting tools or intuitively, when you're done, it's done. So you let the spirit know, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking to me. I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Stay here. Because a lot of people say, is it going to follow me? Nothing's ever followed me. But if you make it clear, because remember, you're in control, they will stay in that place. And then you don't have to talk to them again. So, yeah.
that's awesome. Tawny, I really appreciate you for taking the time.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me. And anytime, yeah.
You have a great one.
You too. Bye bye.